Daniel Foster's calloused fingers tightened around the wrench as he leaned over Mrs. Henderson's Camry engine. 35 years of life had left their mark, not in weakness, but in the hardened resolve evident in every precise movement. The gray threading through his dark hair at the temples wasn't from age, but from years of building Foster and Son Auto Repair into something his father would have been proud of. The familiar scent of motor oil and metal filled his nostrils as he worked, his mind focused on the mechanical puzzle before him. The shop radio played quietly in the background, its classic rock barely audible over the sound of tools and machinery. "Danny?" Rosa Martinez's voice cut through his concentration. He didn't look up immediately, finishing the delicate adjustment he was making. Rosa had known him long enough to wait. "Becky called," Rosa continued, her tone careful. "She's canceling dinner again. Something about a faculty meeting." Daniel's jaw clenched, the muscles working beneath his stubbled skin. His grip on the wrench tightened until his knuckles went white. "Third time this month." He forced his fingers to relax, not wanting to strip the bolt he was working on. "The Henderson job's almost done," he said, his voice controlled and even. He refused to acknowledge the cancellation, but Rosa knew him too well. She'd been there 10 years ago when Becky had first walked into the shop with her broken-down Volkswagen, had watched him fall hard for the artistic teacher with dreams in her eyes. "Did Miguel finish with the Bradley's brakes?" Daniel asked, deliberately changing the subject. As if summoned, Miguel Santos rolled out from under a lifted truck, his young face unusually serious. At 22, he was Daniel's youngest mechanic, but his skills had earned him respect in the shop. "All set, boss." "But—" He hesitated, wiping his hands nervously on his coveralls. "There's something you should know." Daniel set down his wrench, giving Miguel his full attention. The young mechanic rarely showed uncertainty. "I saw Mrs. Foster yesterday," Miguel continued, his words coming faster now. "At Riverside Coffee. She wasn't alone." The silence in the shop grew heavy. Even the radio seemed to fade away. "Business meeting?" Daniel's voice was dangerously quiet. Miguel shook his head, unable to meet his boss's eyes. "Guy in an expensive suit." They looked close. Real close. Rosa touched Daniel's arm, her fingers gentle but firm. "Danny, maybe it's time to talk to Elena. She works at Becky's old school. She might know something." Daniel nodded slowly, his mind already working through the implications. Elena Martinez, Rosa's younger sister, had helped Becky get her first teaching job. They'd maintained a friendship since then, or so everyone had believed. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of mechanical work and forced concentration. Daniel threw himself into each job with intense focus, his movements precise and controlled. His customers noticed nothing amiss, but his employees saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his responses grew shorter and more clipped. As evening approached, instead of heading home to an empty house, Daniel drove to Cedar Mill High. Elena's small office light was still on, as he'd expected. She always worked late, dedicated to helping her students find their paths. He knocked once before entering. Elena didn't look up from the student files spread across her desk, her dark curls falling forward as she wrote. "I wondered when you'd come," she said, finally raising her head. "Close the door." Daniel shut the door with a quiet click, then stood waiting. Elena had always reminded him of a bird of prey, quiet, observant, and surprisingly fierce when provoked. "Sit down, Danny," she said, pushing aside her work. "We need to talk about Robert Kendall." Daniel's eyebrows rose slightly. "Preston Academy's art department head?" "The same." Elena pulled out a thick file from her drawer. "He has a history, Danny. A pattern." Over the next hour, Elena laid out a story that made Daniel's blood run cold. Robert Kendall was more than just a department head. He was a predator. He targeted passionate, talented teachers, promising them galleries, connections, a grander life than they could achieve on their own. 3 schools, Elena said, spreading out papers across her desk. 3 scandals, all quietly buried by administrations more concerned with their reputation than their teachers. Daniel's eyes scanned the documents, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "How did you get all this?" "Because I have proof." Elena turned her laptop around, showing him a receipt. Remember last month when Becky said the school needed emergency art supplies? $5,000 from your savings. Daniel nodded stiffly. They'd had to postpone repairs on their roof for those supplies. No supplies were ever ordered. Elena continued, her voice hard. But this was posted on a private art forum. The screen showed a receipt for an exclusive weekend art retreat. 2 tickets. Robert Kindle's name clearly listed. There's more, Elena said, pulling up more documents. Amy works here now. Robert's last project from Lakeside Prep. She came to me for counseling, recognized Becky's name when I mentioned her. She's willing to talk. Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He paced the small office, his mind racing through memories of the past year. Becky's changes had been subtle at first. New clothes, different makeup, a sudden interest in modern art, so unlike her usual style. Then came the contemptuous comments about his work, the increasing distance, the constant cancellations. There's someone else you need to talk to, Elena said quietly. Tommy Rodriguez. Daniel stopped pacing. Lisa Rodriguez's kid? From my youth mechanic program? He's been helping set up for Preston Academy's events. Becky doesn't know him. You've never mentioned the program to her. He's seen things, Danny. Taken pictures. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Becky. Working late again. Don't wait up. Another buzz followed immediately. Tommy Rodriguez. Mr. F. Got those pictures you need to see. Plus something about missing art supplies at Preston. My mom's real good at accounting. She noticed some weird numbers. Daniel stared at the messages, his expression hardening into something that would have made most people step back. Elena, however, simply watched him, recognizing the look of a man preparing for war. This isn't just about your marriage anymore, is it? She asked softly. No, Daniel replied, his voice like steel. This is about justice. For everyone he's hurt, everyone they've betrayed. He headed for the door, his movements deliberate and controlled. Send me everything you have. And Elena? Thank you. Danny, she called after him. What are you going to do? He paused in the doorway, his broad shoulders squared. I'm going to destroy them both. Not just their marriage or their reputation. Everything they've built on lies and betrayal. As he walked to his truck, his phone buzzed again. Another message from Tommy. Mr. F., you should see this stuff. It's worse than we thought. Way worse. Daniel started his engine, his mind already mapping out the steps ahead. Robert Kindle and Becky had made a fatal mistake. They'd underestimated him, seeing only a simple mechanic. They were about to learn just how dangerous that assumption could be. Because Daniel Foster didn't believe in forgiveness. Not for betrayal, not for theft, and certainly not for people who preyed on others' dreams. They wanted to play games with people's lives? Fine. He'd show them what happened when you crossed someone who had nothing left to lose but everything to prove. Chapter 2. The Web Widens. The next morning, Lisa Rodriguez set up her laptop on Daniel's office desk, her accounting experience evident in the way she organized her notes. The small office smelled of coffee and determination as she pulled up spreadsheet after spreadsheet. Look at these requisition forms, she said, pointing to columns of numbers. They don't match the bank withdrawals. And these gallery receipts? She pulled up another document. They're forgeries. Good ones. But I've been doing this long enough to spot the inconsistencies. Tommy, her 17-year-old son, nodded eagerly from where he stood behind her. That's not all, Mr. Foster. He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying over the screen. I got pictures. Lots of them. Daniel leaned forward, studying the images Tommy had captured. Becky and Robert in intimate moments around the school. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but the body language told its own story. Their heads close together over documents, his hand lingering on her arm, her smile bright and eager as she looked up at him. They don't even try to hide it anymore, Tommy continued, his voice tight with anger. But yesterday I heard them fighting about money. She was demanding something, and he kept telling her to be patient. Lisa pulled up another document. The same week Becky asked for money for student supplies. These large deposits appeared in a new account. She showed Daniel a photo Tommy had taken of Becky at the bank, Robert standing close behind her as she filled out paperwork. She's not just betraying you, Lisa said softly, her dark eyes full of sympathy and rage. She's stealing from the school, from the students, from kids who can't afford their own art supplies. Before Daniel could respond, Elena arrived with a young woman he didn't recognize. She was perhaps 25, with a haunted look in her eyes that spoke of hard-learned lessons. "Danny, this is Amy," Elena introduced them. "She's agreed to tell you everything." Amy sat down carefully, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "He promised me everything too," she said without preamble. "Galleries in New York, connections in the art world, a chance to really make it." She laughed bitterly. "Then he used my art to apply for grants, took all the credit. When I threatened to expose him, he had me blacklisted from private schools." "Tell him about the others," Elena prompted gently. Amy's story painted a clear pattern. Robert found talented teachers, seduced them with promises of fame and recognition, used their work and connections for his own gain, then discarded them when they were no longer useful. But this time was different. This time he'd chosen someone with a real family, not by blood but by choice, who would fight back. Daniel's phone buzzed. A message from Joey Martinez, Rosa's son who worked part-time at the shop. "Boss, that guy just showed up asking about you. Getting weird vibes." "Time to make some moves," Daniel said, standing up. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath the surface. "Lisa, I need everything documented. Every discrepancy, every forged receipt, every missing dollar. Tommy, those photos, make copies, lots of them. Elena, get Amy's statement in writing. Notarized." "What are you going to do?" Amy asked, watching him with a mixture of fear and hope. "I'm going to give Robert Kindle exactly what he's asking for," Daniel replied, checking his phone again. "A conversation about the future." He turned to Lisa and Tommy. "You two should go. What's coming next?" "It's better if you're not here." Lisa stood, gathering her materials. "Danny, be careful. Men like Robert, they're dangerous when cornered." Daniel's smile was cold. "So am I." After they left, he sat at his desk, reviewing everything they discovered. The betrayal was deeper than he'd imagined, more calculated. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about systematic exploitation, about using people's dreams against them. Elena watched him from the doorway. "You're sure about this?" "You know me, Elena. When have I ever backed down from a fight?" "This isn't a fight, Danny. This is war. And wars have casualties." He looked up at her, his eyes hard. "They chose the battlefield when they decided to betray not just me, but everyone who trusted them. Now they'll learn what happens when you underestimate a man with nothing left to lose." Elena nodded slowly. "Just remember, revenge is like a machine. Once you start it running, it's hard to control." "Good thing I'm a mechanic then," Daniel replied, standing up. "I know exactly how to control machines." His phone buzzed again. Another message from Joey. "He's still here, boss. Getting pretty insistent about seeing you." Daniel grabbed his jacket. "Tell everyone to clear out of the shop." "What's coming next?" "It's better if there are no witnesses." Elena caught his arm. "Danny, I won't do anything illegal," he assured her. "But I am going to make them regret every lie, every betrayal, every dollar they stole from people who trusted them." As he walked toward the shop floor, his steps were measured and deliberate. The time for investigation was over. Now it was time for action. Because Daniel Foster had learned one thing from his years in the garage. Sometimes you had to tear something completely apart before you could rebuild it. And he was very, very good at tearing things apart. Chapter 3. The First Strike. Robert Kindle stood in the middle of Foster and Son Auto Repair, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the industrial surroundings. His polished appearance screamed old money and privilege, from his manicured nails to his designer shoes. "Mr. Foster," he said, his voice carrying the smooth confidence of a man used to getting his way. "I believe we need to talk." Daniel took his time wiping his hands on a shop rag, studying his opponent. Everything about Robert Kindle was calculated for effect. The casual stance, the hint of a smile, the way he managed to look both authoritative and approachable. "About my wife," Daniel replied evenly, "or about the money she stole for you?" The confident smile faltered for just a moment. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean. I'm here about my car." "Like you were at Riverside Coffee?" The art retreat? The supply room at Preston? Daniel's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it that made Robert take a small step back. Tell me, does the school board know about Amy Chin? Or Jennifer Phillips? Or the grants you claimed for artwork that wasn't yours? The color drained from Robert's face. You're out of your league, mechanic. Becky's finally waking up to what she deserves. A real life, real opportunities, not this. He gestured dismissively at the garage. You mean what happened to these women? Daniel pressed a button on his phone. Amy's voice filled the garage, detailing Robert's manipulation and threats. On the shop's TV screen, photos began to appear, Tommy's evidence of their meetings, Lisa's financial analysis showing the pattern of theft, Elena's carefully documented records of previous victims. Robert's facade cracked. He pulled out his phone, fingers trembling slightly as he dialed. The date is canceled, he snapped. Don't contact me again. It's over. Barely 5 minutes later, Becky stormed into the garage. Her designer clothes and perfectly styled hair seemed as out of place as Robert's suit. What did you do? She demanded, her voice shrill. I just got a text from Robert ending everything. I'm going to get the best divorce lawyer in the state and destroy you if you don't let me go. Daniel smiled, but it wasn't the warm smile she'd once known. This was the smile of a predator who'd successfully cornered its prey. Destroy me? With what? Evidence of your theft? Your fraud? The family you betrayed? He gestured around the shop, where members of their community had gathered, teachers from her old school, parents of her students, the Alvarez family who'd welcomed her as their own. You didn't just betray me, he said quietly, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. You betrayed all of us. Every student you stole from, every person who trusted you, every member of this family who welcomed you with open arms. Danny, please, Becky's voice cracked. You don't understand. Robert was offering me a real chance at success. Success? Daniel interrupted. Let me show you what success built on betrayal looks like. He nodded to Elena, who stepped forward with a thick folder. 3 schools, Elena said, her voice professional but cold. 3 scandals, 3 careers destroyed. And now you, Becky, the 4th victim who became an accomplice. I'm not a victim, Becky protested. Robert loves me. He understands my art in a way you never could, like he understood Amy's art? Daniel asked. Or Jennifer's? Or Sarah's? With each name, he pulled out another file, another story of betrayal and manipulation. Amy stepped forward, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. He promised me everything too, Becky. The same galleries, the same connections, the same grand future. Want to know what I got instead? She spread out photos of her artwork, pieces Robert had claimed as his own inspiration for grant applications. That's different, Becky protested, but her voice lacked conviction. He's changed. We're going to open our own gallery. With what money? Lisa Rodriguez stepped forward, holding up financial records. The money you stole from student supplies? The grants based on forged documentation? Or maybe the loans you were planning to take out in Daniel's name? Becky's face went white. How did you? My son Tommy has quite an eye for detail, Lisa continued, both with a camera and with numbers. He documented everything. Becky, everything. You had my son investigate me? Becky turned to Daniel, outrage replacing fear. No, Daniel replied coldly. Tommy came to me. Seems watching you steal from kids who can barely afford art supplies didn't sit well with him. Maria Alvarez, who taught Becky traditional Mexican recipes and treated her like a daughter, stepped forward. How could you, Bequita? We trusted you. Made you family. Family. Becky laughed bitterly. A mechanic's wife? Living in a small house, shopping at discount stores, pretending to be happy with mediocrity? Robert showed me what I could be. A thief. Daniel's voice cut through her rant. A fraud? Because that's what you are, Becky. And now everyone knows it. He turned to the assembled crowd. Thank you all for coming, for being witnesses. Now, if you'll excuse us, my wife and I need to discuss the terms of our separation. As the others filed out, many stopping to touch Daniel's shoulder or whisper words of support, Becky's bravado crumbled. What are you going to do? She whispered. Daniel sat behind his desk, every inch the man in control. I'm going to give you a choice. Option 1. You sign a confession detailing everything, the theft, the fraud, your part in Robert's schemes. You agree to testify against him when the time comes. In return, I'll help you make restitution to the school and the students you stole from. And option 2, I release everything we have to the school board, the police, and the press. Your career in education ends. Your reputation is destroyed. And you face the consequences alone. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice shook. You wouldn't destroy me like that. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes hard. The man who would have protected you, who would have forgiven you. He died the moment you betrayed not just him, but every person in this community who trusted you. He pushed a document across the desk. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Choose wisely. Becky stared at the paper, tears streaming down her face. I really did love you once. No, Daniel replied, standing up. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. He walked to the door. Lock up when you leave. And Becky? Don't bother trying to run. Tommy's been documenting your movements for weeks. We know about the secret account, the packed suitcase in your trunk, the conversations with Robert about leaving town. He paused in the doorway, his silhouette dark against the evening light. One more thing, that art retreat you used our savings for? The police are very interested in what really happened to that money. After she left, Rosa found him in the garage, cleaning his tools. You okay? She asked softly. I will be, he replied, not looking up. Once justice is served. And after that? Daniel finally met her eyes, his expression resolute. After that, we make sure this never happens to anyone else in our community. Robert Kindle isn't the only predator out there, and Becky isn't the only one who chose greed over loyalty. Rosa nodded, understanding the unspoken promise. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about protection, about standing up for what was right. The board meeting is next week, she said. Elena's arranged for Amy and the others to testify. Good, Daniel replied, putting away the last tool. Because this is just the beginning. As he locked up the shop that night, Daniel knew he was standing on the edge of something bigger than simple revenge. The next few weeks would test not just his resolve, but the strength of the community he'd helped build. Robert and Becky had chosen their path. Now they would face the consequences of betraying not just a man, but an entire family bound not by blood, but by something stronger, loyalty, trust, and a shared sense of justice. The first strike had landed. The war for justice was about to begin. Chapter 4. Community Standards. The Preston Academy boardroom buzzed with tension as parents, teachers, and community members packed every available space. Daniel sat in the back row, his presence commanding attention despite his deliberate choice to remain inconspicuous. Amy Chin perched beside him, her portfolio clutched tight against her chest, knuckles white with determination. Board members filed in, their usual casual demeanor replaced by grim professionalism. Principal Matthews adjusted his tie repeatedly, eyes darting between Robert Kindle and the growing crowd. This emergency session will come to order, Board Chairman Wilson announced, his voice cutting through the murmurs. We're here to address serious allegations against our art department head, Robert Kindle, and former teacher Rebecca Foster. Robert stood at the podium, his designer suit unable to mask the slight tremor in his hands. These allegations are ridiculous. Mrs. Foster and I have simply been working to elevate our art program. By stealing from it? Lisa Rodriguez's voice rang out as she rose from her seat. The accountant's nature showed in the precise way she held up her documents. I've analyzed every transaction over the past 18 months. Let me show you exactly where the money went. She strode to the front, spreading papers across the board table. Requisition forms for student supplies, $5,000. But the supplies never arrived. Instead, we have these. She projected receipts onto the screen. Art retreat bookings, gallery submissions, private dining charges. Tommy stepped forward next, his young face set with determination. I've been helping set up for school events all year. I've got proof of where that money really went. His phone connected to the projector, displaying a damning sequence of images. Jewelry receipts, hotel bookings, expensive art supplies delivered to private addresses. Robert's polished facade cracked further. These are private matters, completely unrelated to... Unrelated. A parent stood up, voice shaking. My daughter's been using recycled canvases because the new ones never arrived. Meanwhile, you're spending our money on luxury retreats? More voices joined in. Parents whose children had been told to share dwindling supplies. Teachers who'd witnessed Robert's inappropriate behavior with Becky. Former students who'd seen the manipulation unfold. Mr. Kindle wrote my college recommendation, a senior girl said, stepping forward. But only after I agreed to let him submit my portfolio work as inspiration for his grant applications. Daniel watched silently as the testimony mounted. He'd planned this carefully, working with Elena to schedule speakers for maximum impact. Each revelation built on the last, creating an undeniable pattern of exploitation. Amy's turn came last. She walked to the podium, her voice quiet but steady. 3 years ago, I was teaching at Lakeside Prep. Robert Kindle promised me everything: gallery shows, connections, recognition. Then he used my artwork for grant applications, claimed my techniques as his own innovations. She opened her portfolio, displaying original pieces alongside grant documents bearing Robert's name. When I threatened to expose him, he didn't just fire me. He blacklisted me from every private school in the region, called me unstable, difficult, unprofessional. Robert surged to his feet. This is absurd. You can't possibly believe. We have the emails, Robert. Elena Martinez stepped forward, holding up a USB drive. Every threat, every manipulation, every false recommendation. Did you really think Amy was the only one who kept records? The board chairman's face had grown progressively darker. Mr. Kindle, please surrender your keys and credentials. The police will escort you out while we review this evidence. You can't do this to me. Robert's composure shattered completely. I built this art program. I brought prestige to this school. You built it on theft and lies, Chairman Wilson replied. Officer Thompson, please remove Mr. Kindle from the premises. As security led him away, Robert caught Daniel's eye. The look of defeat transformed to shock when Daniel smiled coldly and held up a USB drive. Backup copies of everything, including emails Robert thought he deleted. After Robert's removal, the board turned to addressing the damage. Daniel listened as they discussed emergency funding for art supplies, reviews of all grant applications, and support for affected students. Mr. Foster, Chairman Wilson said suddenly, you've been very quiet throughout this proceeding. Daniel stood, his presence drawing all eyes. I'm not here for revenge, Mr. Chairman. I'm here for justice, for the students who were cheated, the teachers who were exploited, and the community that trusted both Robert Kindle and my wife. Speaking of Mrs. Foster, Principal Matthews interjected, we'll need to address her role in all this. Already done. Daniel handed over a thick folder. You'll find her signed confession, along with documentation of every fraudulent transaction she participated in. She's agreed to make full restitution. The room erupted in whispers. Board members leafed through the documents, their expressions growing grimmer with each page. This is extensive, Chairman Wilson said finally. How long have you been gathering this evidence? Since I first suspected something was wrong, Daniel replied. In my line of work, you learn to document everything, every part that's replaced, every hour of labor, every warranty claim. Why should this be any different? Amy touched his arm gently. Thank you, Danny, for believing me when no one else would. Daniel nodded, his expression softening slightly. Robert Kindle made a career out of using people's dreams against them. It had to stop. As the meeting concluded, community members approached Daniel one by one, offering support, sharing stories, expressing gratitude for his stand against corruption. What happens now? Tommy asked, helping pack up the evidence. Daniel's smile held no warmth. Easy? No. This isn't about being easy or hard. It's about making things right. The students get their restitution. The truth comes out. And everyone involved faces consequences. Including Robert? Tommy asked, entering with a stack of new evidence files. Especially Robert. Daniel took the files, scanning their contents. His hearing's next week. Elena's arranged for more victims to testify. Lisa studied her old friend's face. You're not done with him yet, are you? Robert Kindle built his career on exploiting people's dreams, Daniel replied, his voice hard. Using their talent, stealing their work, destroying their reputations when they threatened to expose him. That ends now. Tommy sorted through more photographs. My contact at the school found more doctored grant applications. He wasn't just stealing current student work. He had files going back years. Document everything, Daniel instructed. Every forgery, every stolen piece, every false claim. When we're done, he won't be able to get a job teaching finger painting. Rosa entered the office, carrying fresh coffee. The DA called. They want Becky's testimony recorded tomorrow. Good. Daniel checked his watch. That gives her time to face Tommy's art class first. Time to see exactly who she stole from. The next morning, Becky stood before a classroom of young artists, her designer clothes replaced by simple business wear. The students stared at her with a mixture of anger and betrayal. She faltered, looking at their faces. I'm here to apologize. For stealing our supplies, a young girl asked. Or for helping Mr. Kindle steal our work. Tommy stepped forward from where he'd been leaning against the wall. Both. Show them the files, Mrs. Foster. Becky opened her folder with trembling hands. These are grant applications Mr. Kindle submitted. Using your artwork, your techniques, your creativity. Her voice cracked. I helped him do it. Helped him exploit your talent for his gain. One by one, students recognized their work in the applications. Pieces they'd created with borrowed supplies, on recycled canvases, with shared paints. The money from these grants, Becky continued, should have gone to the art program. To new supplies, better equipment, opportunities for all of you. Instead you spent it on yourself, Tommy finished. On retreats and jewelry and fancy dinners. Becky nodded, unable to meet their eyes. My old artwork is being sold to pay you back. It's not enough, I know, but... No, Tommy agreed. It's not. But it's a start. After the students filed out, Tommy lingered. Mr. Foster said you had something else for me. Becky pulled out a large portfolio. Your original works. The ones Robert, the ones we took. They're all here. Including the piece that won the state competition. Under his name. Yes. She handed him the portfolio. I'm testifying about that tomorrow. About all of it. Tommy took his artwork, his expression hard. You know what the worst part was? I actually believed in you both. Thought you saw something in us besides just talent to exploit. I'm sorry, Tommy. Save it for the DA. He turned to leave, then paused. Mr. Foster was right about you. You didn't just betray him. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. Alone in the classroom, Becky gathered her things. Her testimony tomorrow would end her teaching career permanently, but at least the truth would finally come out. Because Daniel Foster believed in justice, not just for himself, but for every student, every teacher, every dreamer who'd been exploited by people like Robert Kindle. And sometimes justice meant facing the full consequences of your choices, no matter how painful they might be. Held no warmth. Now we make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man Robert Kindle is. Every school, every gallery, every grant committee. He wanted fame? Let's make him famous. The boardroom emptied slowly, but the impact of the day's revelations would ripple through the community for months to come. Robert Kindle had built his reputation on stolen dreams and betrayed trust. Now he would watch it crumble, piece by carefully documented piece. Because Daniel Foster believed in justice. Not the quick, hot fury of revenge, but the cold, dismantling of everything a betrayer held dear. Robert had chosen his battlefield when he decided to exploit Daniel's wife and their community. Now he would learn the true cost of that choice. Chapter 5. Family Matters. The aroma of traditional Mexican cooking filled Maria Alvarez's home, a stark contrast to the somber mood permeating the Sunday dinner gathering. 3 generations of extended family sat around the long dining table, the usual lively conversation replaced by heavy silence. Maria stood at the head of the table, her weathered hands gripping the back of her chair. 10 years, she said, her accent thickening with emotion. 10 years I taught her our family recipes, shared our stories, treated her like my own daughter. Elena reached out, touching her grandmother's hand. She fooled all of us, abuela. She was very good at playing the role we wanted to see. The doorbell's sharp ring cut through the tension. Rosa moved to answer it, but Daniel held up his hand. Let me. He'd been expecting this visit, had planned for it. Becky stood on the porch, her designer clothes a stark contrast to the modest surroundings. Mascara streaked down her face, her carefully maintained image cracking. Please, I can explain. Explain what? Rosa stepped forward, her voice hard. How you stole from children. Used our family's love while lying to our faces? The family gathered in the doorway, forming a wall of disappointed faces. Becky's composure cracked further. I had dreams. Her voice rose hysterically. Daniel was holding me back with his simple life, his grease-stained hands. Those hands, Miguel interrupted, stepping forward, fixed your car for free, helped you move, built easels for your students when the school budget couldn't cover them. Those hands, Lisa Rodriguez added, her accountant's precision giving weight to her words, gave my son a future when everyone else saw a troublemaker. Taught him skills no one else would. One by one, family members and friends shared stories of Daniel's quiet generosity, his integrity, his dedication to their community. Each tale stripped away another layer of Becky's justifications. Maria spoke last, her voice heavy with disappointment. I shared with you the recipes passed down through 5 generations. Taught you the stories behind each dish. Welcomed you into our family's heart. And you repaid that trust with betrayal. I'm sorry, Becky whispered, tears streaming down her face. Sorry you did it. Or sorry you got caught? Daniel's voice came from behind her. She spun to find him holding her phone, the one she'd left behind in her rush to confront him at the shop. Because according to these messages, you were planning much more than just art supply theft. He scrolled through the evidence. Plans to access his savings, sell the classic car he'd restored with his father, even take out loans in his name. The police have copies, he said quietly, his calm tone more frightening than anger. Along with everything else. Time to face consequences, Becky. Danny, please. She reached for him, but he stepped back. The man who would have forgiven you died the moment you betrayed not just him, but every person in this room. He gestured to the gathered family. These people took you in, loved you, supported your dreams. And you used that love to steal from children, to help a predator exploit more victims. Maria moved forward, her small frame radiating dignity. Como pudiste? She asked softly. How could you? Becky's face crumpled. I loved him. Robert promised me everything I ever wanted. No, Rosa interrupted. You loved what he promised you. There's a difference. What are you going to do to me? Becky asked, looking between the faces she'd once called family. Daniel's expression remained impassive. Nothing. You've done it to yourself. Every theft, every lie, every betrayal. It's all documented. The board has your confession. The police have the evidence. Your teaching license will be suspended pending investigation. How am I supposed to live? To work? You should have thought of that before stealing from children, Lisa said coldly. Before helping Robert exploit more victims like Amy. Tommy spoke up from where he stood with his mother. You know what's really messed up? I looked up to you. Thought you were different from the other teachers who just saw me as a problem kid. Becky's shoulders slumped in defeat. I never meant to hurt anyone. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Daniel replied. You made choices. Now you'll live with them. Maria stepped forward, her face set in lines of disappointment. Leave my house, Rebecca. You are no longer welcome at this table. The family parted silently, creating a path to the door. Becky walked through it, each step heavy with the weight of consequences. After she left, the family gathered around Daniel, offering support in quiet touches and gentle words. You're too kind to her still, Rosa said softly. Daniel shook his head. It's not kindness. Justice doesn't need cruelty to be complete. Her own actions will punish her more thoroughly than anything we could do. Maria began setting out dinner, the familiar routine bringing comfort to the shaken family. Scientate, she commanded, and everyone took their places. The empty chair at Daniel's side a stark reminder of betrayal. As dishes were passed and conversation slowly resumed, Daniel looked around the table. These people, bound by love rather than blood, had stood with him, helped him expose the truth, supported him through the darkest moments. Family, Maria said, raising her glass. Real family stands together. Through good and bad, through betrayal and healing, through justice, Daniel added quietly, and consequences. The meal continued, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Becky had chosen her path, chosen to betray not just a husband but an entire community that had embraced her. Now she would learn what it meant to face that community's justice, not in rage or revenge, but in the cold dismantling of everything she built on lies and betrayal. Chapter 6. Truth and Consequences. Preston Academy's reputation lay in tatters, the scandal sending shockwaves through the educational community. Robert Kindle faced multiple charges: fraud, embezzlement, harassment. The upcoming court trials threatened to expose years of systematic exploitation that reached far beyond one school's art department. Becky sat in her court-appointed attorney's shabby office, the worn furniture a far cry from the luxury she'd grown accustomed to. Her designer clothes seemed out of place now, a costume from a life that had crumbled to dust. Files and documents scattered across the desk told the story of her downfall in cold, hard numbers. "They're offering a deal," her attorney said, sliding papers across the desk. "Full confession, testimony against Kindle, complete restitution. In exchange, they'll recommend community service instead of jail time." Becky stared at the documents, her hands trembling slightly. "How can I pay restitution? I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my future." "Not everything." Daniel's voice came from the doorway. He entered the office, his presence filling the small space. "Your paintings at Preston belong to the school. That was in your contract. But your old work, the genuine pieces from before Robert, they're in storage. Might cover what you stole." Becky's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Foster, this is a private consultation." "It's okay," Becky interrupted. "Let him stay." She looked up at her soon-to-be ex-husband. "Why are you helping me? After everything I did?" "Because 10 years ago, I promised to love you for better or worse. This is definitely worse." Daniel placed a folder on the desk. "Sign the confession. Take the deal. Then leave town and start over. Just like that. Just like that. But first," he smiled grimly, "you have some apologies to make. Starting with Tommy Rodriguez's art class." The attorney reviewed the papers. "This is unusually generous." "It's not generosity," Daniel corrected. "It's justice. The students she stole from get restitution. Robert loses his key witness if she turns state's evidence. The community sees consequences for betrayal." Becky's hand shook as she reached for the pen. "What about Robert? Have you heard from him?" "He's doing what men like him always do, trying to buy his way out. But money can't erase evidence. Can't silence victims who've decided to speak." The scratching of the pen seemed unnaturally loud as Becky signed page after page. With each signature, another piece of her carefully constructed facade crumbled. "I did love you," she whispered, not looking up. "In the beginning." "No," Daniel replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "You loved the idea of me. The reliable husband, the successful business owner, the man who would support your dreams. But when those dreams changed, when Robert offered you a faster path to fame, you forgot about the community that supported you, the family that loved you, the students who trusted you." "I never meant—" "Save it for your testimony," Daniel cut her off. "The court will want to hear all about how Robert manipulated you, used your ambitions against you. Just remember, I have every message, every email, every receipt. So keep your testimony honest." The lawyer gathered the signed documents. "I'll submit these today. The DA will want to schedule a formal statement. I'll have my old artwork delivered to the school," Becky said quietly. "For the restitution." Daniel nodded once. "I'll let Lisa Rodriguez know. She's handling the accounting of damages." The next morning, Becky stood before Tommy's art class, her designer clothes replaced by simple business wear. The students stared at her with a mixture of anger and betrayal as she prepared to face the human cost of her actions. She faltered, looking at their faces. "I'm here to apologize for stealing our supplies," a young girl asked. "Or for helping Mr. Kindle steal our work." Tommy stepped forward from where he'd been leaning against the wall. "Both." "Show them the files, Mrs. Foster." Becky opened her folder with trembling hands. "These are grant applications Mr. Kindle submitted. Using your artwork, your techniques, your creativity." Her voice cracked. "I helped him do it. Helped him exploit your talent for his gain." One by one, students recognized their work in the applications. Pieces they'd created with borrowed supplies, on recycled canvases, with shared paints, all used without their knowledge or consent. The money from these grants, Becky continued, should have gone to the art program, to new supplies, better equipment, opportunities for all of you. Instead you spent it on yourself," Tommy finished. "On retreats and jewelry and fancy dinners." Becky nodded, unable to meet their eyes. "My old artwork is being sold to pay you back. It's not enough, I know, but—" "No," Tommy agreed. "It's not. But it's a start." After the students filed out, Tommy lingered. "Mr. Foster said you had something else for me." Becky pulled out a large portfolio. "Your original works. The ones Robert, the ones we took. They're all here, including the piece that won the state competition. Under his name." "Yes." She handed him the portfolio. "I'm testifying about that tomorrow. About all of it." Tommy took his artwork, his expression hard. "You know what the worst part was? I actually believed in you both. Thought you saw something in us besides just talent to exploit." Back at the shop, Daniel reviewed the latest evidence with Lisa and Elena. Reports of more victims coming forward, more stolen artwork discovered, more fraudulent grants exposed. "The DA's office called," Elena said. "They're adding charges based on the new evidence. Robert's looking at serious time." "Good," Daniel replied, his voice firm. "He built his reputation on stealing dreams. Now he can watch it crumble." Lisa studied the financial records. "What about Becky's testimony tomorrow?" "She'll tell the truth," Daniel said, "because she knows the consequences if she doesn't." He placed a USB drive on the desk. Every conversation, every plan, every scheme they made. Enough evidence to bury them both. "Some might say you're being too easy on her," Lisa observed. Daniel's expression remained hard. "This isn't about being easy or hard. It's about justice. About making things right." As evening approached, Daniel stood in his shop, surrounded by the tools and machines that had been his life before betrayal changed everything. But now these tools served a different purpose, not just fixing cars, but rebuilding trust, restoring justice, ensuring consequences for those who'd exploited others. Tomorrow, Becky would face the DA. Robert would face more charges. The truth would continue to unravel their carefully constructed lies. Because Daniel Foster believed in justice. Not the quick satisfaction of revenge, but the dismantling of everything built on betrayal and lies. The reckoning wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 7. Hidden Costs. 6 months after Becky's departure, Daniel sat in his office reviewing the month's accounts when Amy burst through the door, clutching a laptop. "You need to see this," she said, her face pale. "I was cleaning out the old computer in the supply room and found something." Daniel moved around his desk as Amy placed the laptop before him. "A flash drive, hidden in the back panel. I almost missed it, but when I plugged it in..." She opened several folders, revealing hundreds of files. "These aren't just copies of student work. They're complete forgeries." Daniel leaned closer, studying the images. Each file contained student artwork alongside modified versions. Subtle changes that maintained the core talent while adapting the style to appear more sophisticated. "National competitions," Amy explained, scrolling through documents. "Grant applications, gallery submissions, all using stolen student work, modified just enough to hide the source." Tommy Rodriguez entered, carrying more financial records. His face darkened as he recognized one of the pieces. "That's my portfolio. From the summer workshop." He moved closer, pointing at specific images. He said he was reviewing it for scholarship recommendations. Daniel's expression hardened as he scrolled through more files. "How many students?" "Dozens," Amy replied. Maybe hundreds. Going back years. Each piece carefully altered, then submitted under different names, usually Robert's former students or associates. The office door burst open again as Lisa Rodriguez rushed in, tears streaming down her face. Danny, they're trying to take the community center. Daniel straightened, instantly alert. What? Some developer just filed paperwork claiming prior rights to the property. They're threatening immediate eviction of all current programs. Lisa wiped her eyes angrily. The youth mechanic program, the art classes, everything. They want it all gone by the end of the month. Daniel pulled up the property records on his computer, scanning through ownership documents. A familiar name caught his eye. Catherine Kindle Development, LLC. Robert's sister, he said quietly. Should have known he wouldn't go down alone. Tommy leaned over his shoulder, studying the documents. Look at the filing dates. These ownership claims, they're all backdated. Using some kind of loophole about incomplete property transfers from the 1980s. Can they do that? Amy asked. They can try. Daniel's voice carried the same cold determination that had exposed Robert's original schemes. Lisa, get me everything you can find on Catherine Kindle's company. Property records, tax filings, business registrations, everything? Already started, Lisa replied, pulling out her laptop. Something felt off about the timing, so I did some digging. Their company wasn't even registered when some of these supposed property transfers took place. Daniel turned to Tommy. Those competition pieces they stole. Any way to prove the original dates of creation? Tommy nodded eagerly. Most digital art programs embed metadata. Plus, I kept all my original files, including progress shots. Good. Amy, start compiling everything from that flash drive. I want to know every competition, every grant, every gallery showing where they used stolen work. What are you thinking? Lisa asked, recognizing the look in Daniel's eyes. I'm thinking Robert and his sister got careless. They never expected anyone to look too closely at their operation. He stood, gathering the evidence. They wanted to play games with property rights? Fine. Let's show them what happens when you try to steal from this community twice. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. More community members arrived, bringing records, testimonies, and evidence. Elena Martinez coordinated with former students, many of whom recognized their altered work in Catherine's gallery publications. Found something? Tommy called out, surrounded by screens displaying property records. Catherine's company, it's not just selling real estate. They've been funding private galleries, special exhibitions. He pulled up more documents, all featuring discovered artwork from emerging talents. The same talents Robert was stealing from, Amy finished, comparing records. They weren't just taking our work for competitions. They were selling it through Catherine's galleries. Daniel studied the evidence mounting before him. Robert and Catherine hadn't just been stealing art or property. They built an entire business model on exploiting young talent and community resources. Danny, Lisa said softly, this is bigger than we thought. The property grab, the art sales, the backdated documents. They're trying to take everything you've built? No, Daniel replied, his voice cold with determination. They're trying to take what we built. All of us. This community. He turned to face the gathered group. And that's exactly why they'll fail. Because Daniel Foster had learned something important since Becky's betrayal. The strength of a community bound by trust and justice was far more powerful than any scheme built on lies and exploitation. Robert and Catherine Kindle were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Chapter 8. The Final Battle. The courthouse steps teemed with reporters as Robert Kindle's trial began. Local papers had already picked their narrative, painting Daniel as a vindictive ex-husband orchestrating a smear campaign against his wife's respected colleague. Community center controversy. One headline screamed. Local mechanics fraud claims questioned. Daniel ignored the cameras as he entered the courthouse, Tommy and Elena flanking him protectively. They'd expected this. Catherine Kindle's influence in local media running interference for her brother. Inside, Robert sat at the defense table, still managing to look polished despite months of scandal. His lawyer, an expensive import from a prestigious firm, shuffled papers with practiced confidence. All rise. The bailiff called as Judge Martinez entered, no relation to Elena's family, but known for her strict adherence to documentation and procedure. The prosecution's case started strong, presenting financial records of Robert's fraudulent grant applications. But the defense fought back hard, painting Robert as an innovative educator being persecuted by small-minded locals who didn't understand modern art education. My client's methods may have been unconventional, Robert's lawyer argued smoothly, but his only goal was expanding opportunities for talented students. Tommy sat in the gallery, knuckles white as he gripped his portfolio. Daniel touched his shoulder reassuringly. Their evidence would come soon enough. The turning point came during cross-examination of Amy Chun. Robert's lawyer tried to paint her as unstable, citing her breakdown after leaving Lakeside Prep. "Isn't it true," he asked smugly, "that you suffered what doctors called a stress-induced episode after leaving your previous position?" "Yes," Amy replied calmly. "After your client stole 2 years of my work, submitted it for grants under his name, then threatened to destroy my career if I exposed him." She opened her portfolio. "Would you like to see the proof?" The lawyer faltered slightly. "Your Honor, we haven't had time to review any new evidence." "This isn't new evidence," Elena interrupted, standing. "These documents were submitted during discovery. Page 247 of Exhibit C. Complete documentation of every piece Mr. Kindle stole, including original creation dates and his fraudulent submissions." Judge Martinez studied the documents carefully. "Proceed, Ms. Chun." One by one, Amy displayed her original works alongside Robert's submissions. The timestamps, metadata, and progression photos left no doubt about the true creator. "After doing this to me," Amy continued, her voice carrying clearly, "Mr. Kindle moved to Preston Academy and began targeting students, children who trusted him. But this time, he had help." She nodded to Tommy, who approached with his own portfolio. More students followed, each carrying evidence of stolen work. Parents stepped forward with financial records showing donations that never reached art programs. "Objection," Robert's lawyer shouted. "This is beyond the scope." "Overruled," Judge Martinez replied. "The prosecution has established a pattern of systematic exploitation." "I'll allow it." Catherine Kindle burst into the courtroom, whispered urgently to Robert's lawyer. But it was too late. Lisa Rodriguez had already taken the stand, displaying property records that showed the true extent of the siblings' operation. Catherine Kindle's galleries didn't just sell stolen student work, Lisa explained, projecting documents onto the court screen. They used the profits to buy up community properties through shell companies, then exploited legal loopholes to seize control. She displayed more records. The community center land grab was just their latest attempt. But they made a mistake. They backdated documents to dates before their company even existed. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Catherine's face went pale as Lisa continued presenting evidence of fraudulent property transfers, tax evasion, and money laundering through art sales. "Your Honor," the prosecutor stood. "In light of this evidence, the state would like to add additional charges of conspiracy and racketeering." Judge Martinez nodded. "So ordered." "Mr. Kindle, Ms. Kindle, please remain in the courtroom." "Bailiff, ensure all exits are secured." Robert finally lost his composure. "This is ridiculous. You can't possibly believe these mechanics and failed artists over someone of my standing." "Actually," Daniel spoke for the first time, his voice cutting through the chaos, "we believe the evidence. The documented fraud, the stolen artwork, the falsified property records." He smiled coldly. "Some people never learn to check their deleted emails or their computer's recycling bin." Catherine tried to run but was stopped by court officers. As she was led back to face charges, she spat words at Daniel. "You destroyed my brother's career." "No," Daniel replied calmly. "He did that himself, the moment he decided to build that career by stealing from children." The judge called a recess to review the new evidence, but the outcome was already clear. Robert and Catherine Kindle's empire of exploitation was crumbling, brought down not by high-powered lawyers or wealthy investors, but by a community of mechanics, teachers, and students who refused to let justice be buried under lies. Chapter 9. Rising from Ashes. Daniel sat in his office reviewing architectural plans when a knock interrupted his concentration. Trevor Chen, Amy's father and a prominent gallery owner, stood in the doorway, studying the renovations underway at the community center. Quite a change from 6 months ago, Trevor observed, watching students move between art stations and repair bays. Daniel set aside the plans. What brings you here, Mr. Chen? Your community center. Trevor moved closer, examining the student artwork displayed alongside automotive diagrams. It's exactly what the art world needs. Real talent, real teaching, no exploitation. He gestured to a particularly striking piece. You've created something unique here. Daniel corrected. The community created this. Exactly. Trevor pulled out a folder. That's why I'm here. I want to help you franchise this model. Not just statewide, nationally. Daniel's expression remained neutral. We're not interested in becoming another Preston Academy. No, Trevor agreed. You're interested in preventing more Preston Academies. More Robert Kindles. More stolen dreams. He spread photos across the desk. Similar centers in different cities, all struggling against the same exploitation they'd faced. Lisa Rodriguez entered with fresh financial reports, pausing when she saw Trevor. Mr. Chan, I didn't know you were visiting today. He has a proposition, Daniel explained, showing her the folder. Lisa studied the numbers with her usual precision. These projections, they're actually conservative. With proper management and oversight, we maintain control, Daniel stated firmly. Local community involvement in each location. Full transparency in all operations. Trevor nodded. I wouldn't have it any other way. Your model works because it's built on trust and genuine community support. Over the next hour, they outlined a framework for expansion. Each Foster and Friends location would combine auto repair training with art education, creating safe spaces for young talent to develop. What about funding? Lisa asked. Starting new locations isn't cheap. That's where I come in, Trevor replied. My galleries will partner with each center, providing legitimate outlets for student work. Real exhibitions, real sales, real recognition. With proper contracts and fair compensation, Tommy burst in, excitement breaking his usual cool demeanor. Mr. F. The new equipment just arrived for the digital art lab. Daniel smiled at the young man's enthusiasm. Show Mr. Chun. He might be helping us set up more labs like it. As Tommy led Trevor on a tour, Elena entered with more news. Becky called. She's been volunteering at an art therapy program in Seattle, working with kids from difficult backgrounds. Good for her, Daniel replied without emotion. As long as she stays away from here. She asked about you. Elena pressed gently. About the center. The center's doing fine without her. Daniel's tone made it clear the subject was closed. Later that day, Daniel walked through the renovated spaces. Students worked on engines while discussing color theory. Young artists sketched car designs while learning about aerodynamics. In one corner, Lisa taught a group about business management and accounting. We did it, didn't we? Rosa asked, joining him. Built something real from all that pain. Daniel watched Tommy helping a younger student with a digital design. We built something true. That's what matters. And Robert? Catherine? Serving their sentences. Their empire's gone. Seized to pay restitution to their victims. He turned to his old friend. The community won, Rosa. Not just against them, but against everything they represented. A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. New families arriving, drawn by word of mouth about the center's success. Parents seeking alternatives to traditional education. Kids who'd been labeled problems finding acceptance and opportunity. Mr. Foster? A teenage girl approached nervously. I heard you help people learn both art and mechanics here? Daniel recognized the hope in her eyes. The same hope Robert and Catherine had exploited in others. What's your name? Maria. I'm not very good at either yet. That's why we learn. He gestured to Tommy. Tommy here started the same way. Now he's one of our best instructors. The girl's face lit up as Tommy introduced her to other students. Another soul saved from potential exploitation. Another talent given room to grow safely. Because that was the real victory. Not just exposing the Kindles, but creating something stronger in the wake of their destruction. A place where talent could flourish without fear, where community meant more than profit, where trust wasn't just a word but a foundation. Chapter 10. Legacy. The community center's first anniversary celebration filled the renovated building with laughter and pride. Students displayed their work, both mechanical and artistic, to appreciative crowds. Parents shared stories of transformation. Teachers from other districts came to observe the unique educational model. Tommy stood before his masterpiece, a mural spanning the main wall. Classic cars transformed into soaring birds, each figure representing a real story from the center's first year. Lisa finding her true calling in financial education. Elena expanding her counseling work to serve more families. Amy opening her own gallery focused on student artists. "It's beautiful," Daniel said, studying the details. "You've captured everyone's journey, including yours." Tommy pointed to the central image, a wrench transforming into a key. "You gave us all the key to something better." The celebration continued as more people arrived. Trevor Chan brought gallery owners interested in legitimate partnerships. Other communities sent representatives to learn about franchising the model. Even some of Robert's former victims came, finding healing in the center's success. "You did more than get revenge," Rosie observed, watching children move between art stations and repair bays. "You changed the story." Maria Alvarez, now teaching traditional art techniques to eager students, nodded wisely. "Sometimes the best revenge is living well and helping others live better." A small girl tugged at Daniel's sleeve, holding up a drawing of a car with wings. "Mr. Foster, can you help me make it real?" Daniel studied the drawing, recognizing elements of Becky's artistic style in the child's work. But instead of pain, he felt something else, satisfaction. They had taken the best parts of what was destroyed and built something stronger. "Let's build it together," he said, leading her toward the workshop where dreams took shape in steel and canvas, wrench and brush, heart and hand. Later, alone in his office, Daniel reviewed letters from other communities seeking to replicate their success. Each represented more lives saved from exploitation, more talents preserved, more dreams protected. The phone rang, Becky, calling from her art therapy program. He let it go to voicemail. Some bridges stayed burned. Some betrayals remained unforgiven. But their ashes had fertilized new growth, stronger and more resilient than before. Elena found him there, surrounded by plans for future expansion. Trevor called. 3 more cities want to start programs. Background checks? Already done. They're clean. Real community organizers, not opportunists. Daniel nodded. Send them the framework. But make sure they understand our requirements about local involvement and transparency. They know. Your reputation for ruthlessness with corruption is pretty well known now. He smiled slightly. Good. Maybe it'll make the next Robert Kendall think twice. The sound of evening classes filtered through his door. Engines running, art supplies rustling, voices raised in learning and encouragement. This was his real legacy. Not the exposure of corruption or the punishment of betrayal, but the creation of something unbreakable. Because sometimes the deepest wounds create the strongest foundations. And in protecting others from similar pain, true justice is served. The community center had become more than a place of second chances. It was a fortress against exploitation, a beacon for genuine talent, a home for dreams that refused to be stolen. And Daniel Foster, the mechanic who'd brought down an empire of lies, had found his own redemption in helping others rise from the ashes of betrayal. Epilogue. 10 years later, Daniel Foster studied the framed magazine article on his office wall, Foster and Friends, Revolutionizing Education Through Community Integration. At 45, his temples now carried more gray, but his eyes retained their sharp, uncompromising focus. The network he'd built from the ashes of betrayal had grown to 37 centers across the country, each combining technical training with artistic education. "Mr. Foster?" His assistant knocked on the door. "The quarterly reports are ready, and Ms. Rodriguez is here for the board meeting." Lisa Rodriguez had transformed from a single mother doing accounting work to the chief financial officer of the entire Foster and Friends network. Her precise attention to financial details had prevented countless attempts at exploitation over the years. "Send them in," Daniel replied, turning from the wall of achievements that documented their growth. Lisa entered, her professional attire a far cry from the worried mother who'd once helped expose Robert Kindle's schemes. "You saw the news about Robert?" Daniel nodded grimly. After serving 8 years for fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering, Robert Kindle had attempted to restart his life in another state. But his reputation followed him everywhere, thanks to the thorough documentation of his crimes that Daniel had made sure remained publicly accessible. "Tried to open an art consulting business in Oregon," Lisa continued, setting down her tablet. "Lasted 3 weeks before someone recognized him. No one would work with him once they knew his history." And Catherine? Still serving her 12-year sentence. The additional charges of money laundering hit her harder than the art fraud. Lisa pulled up more records. Their assets are still being liquidated to pay restitution. The latest sale of their properties generated another $2 million for the victims' fund. Tommy Rodriguez, now the creative director of digital arts for the network, entered with his own update. "You'll want to see this, Mr. F." He projected an article onto the wall screen. "Former teacher finds redemption in art therapy." The article detailed Becky's work in Seattle, where she'd spent the past decade working with traumatized youth. Her program had shown promise, but operated under strict oversight due to her past. The photo showed her looking older, simpler, her designer clothes replaced by practical workwear. "She's applied for a grant from the Foster Foundation," Tommy said quietly. "For her youth program." Daniel's expression remained impassive. "Forward it to the Standard Review Committee. No special treatment, positive or negative. She's not allowed to handle any financial aspects," Lisa added. "Part of her plea deal. Everything goes through independent auditors." The meeting continued with updates from other centers. Elena Martinez had expanded her counseling program nationally, helping other locations identify and prevent exploitation. Amy Chin's Student Art Gallery network had grown to include spaces in 12 cities, all operating with transparent contracts and fair compensation. Trevor Chin called. Lisa mentioned. The latest exhibition of student work generated $3 million in legitimate sales. Every penny documented and properly distributed to the artists. Daniel's phone buzzed, a message from Rosa, who now ran the original community center. "You need to see this. Someone special graduating today." Later that afternoon, Daniel stood in the back of the ceremony room, watching Maria Alvarez present certificates to the latest graduating class. Among them was a familiar face, the young girl who'd shown him a drawing of a winged car 10 years ago. "Sarah's work is being featured in next month's gallery show," Amy Chin said, joining him. "She's already had offers from 3 engineering firms and 2 design studios." Daniel nodded, remembering the frightened girl who'd become one of their greatest success stories. "She chose yet? Wants to teach here," Amy smiled. "Says she owes it to the next generation." The ceremony concluded with a presentation of the center's history. Pictures showed their growth from a small auto shop to a nationwide network. One section detailed the Kindle scandal, serving as a permanent reminder of what they'd overcome. "Heard from Miguel Santos yesterday," Rosa reported, approaching after the ceremony. "His center in Miami just graduated their 100th student. All placed in good jobs or continuing education." Daniel's phone buzzed again. Another article. "Robert Kindle found dead in Oregon apartment. Heart attack, according to preliminary reports. No family claimed the body." "Fitting," Rosa observed, reading over his shoulder. "He died alone, just like he left all his victims." "And Catherine?" Sarah asked, joining them with her certificate. "Prison chaplain says she's finally showing real remorse," Lisa replied. "Not that it matters now. Their empire's gone, their reputation destroyed, their legacy erased except as a warning to others." The conversation shifted to future plans. New centers opening, new programs developing, new safeguards being implemented to protect students and teachers alike. "You know," Rosa said softly, "Becky's grant application actually looks solid. The Oversight Committee says her program's helping a lot of kids." Daniel's expression didn't change. "Then it'll be judged on those merits. Nothing more, nothing less." Later that evening, Daniel walked through the expanded community center. The walls displayed artwork from thousands of students who'd found their path here. The workshops hummed with activity, young people learning, creating, growing without fear of exploitation. His phone showed one missed call. "Becky, probably about her grant application. He deleted it without listening to the message. Some betrayals, while eventually serving a greater purpose, remained unforgivable. Maria Alvarez found him in his old office, now a historical display. 10 years, she said, her accent still strong but her English perfect. 10 years since you turned betrayal into blessing. We all did, he corrected. Every person who stood up against exploitation. Every student who trusted us to protect their dreams. Every teacher who chose integrity over easy profit. A new group of students toured the facility, eyes wide with possibility. Their guide explained the center's history, including the scandal that had led to its creation. Because that was part of their mission too, ensuring the next generation understood both the danger of exploitation and the power of community to overcome it. Daniel watched a young artist working on an engine design, her strokes confident and precise. She hadn't been born when Robert and Becky's betrayal had shattered his world. She'd never know the pain that had forged this place. But she, and thousands like her, would benefit from the strength that pain had created. Because sometimes justice wasn't just about punishment. Sometimes it was about building something so strong, so true, that it made the original betrayal seem small in comparison. Robert Kendall had died alone and disgraced. Catherine Kendall would spend years more in prison. Becky lived with the daily consequences of her choices, her life forever marked by her betrayal. But Foster and friends had grown beyond revenge, beyond justice, into something greater. A legacy of protection, education, and opportunity that would outlive them all. And that, Daniel reflected as he watched another generation of dreams take flight, was the truest victory of all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.